Hi there, my name is Afan, and today we're going to do some factoring practice. So I'm mostly going to be factoring quadratics. Let me just, okay, back to the video. So I'm just going to be factoring quadratics. So if you've been following my factoring videos, I just went over how to basically factor and just the basic techniques for factoring quadratics. So if you don't know how to factor, then I suggest you check out those videos. They should be helpful. And if you know how to factor and you're just here to watch some example problems being done just to test your knowledge or just to build on that knowledge, then you've come to the right place because that's what I'll do today. I have a few factoring problems in front of me and a few that I've done, and I'm just going to work through the problems with you guys, and hopefully you can build on your existing knowledge of factoring and just watch someone do some problems just to, again, build on that knowledge. So the first one I wanted to do was p squared minus 36. So let's say this is the expression you had on a test and you were asked to factor it. So if you look at this, it is a special case. So what I suggest doing is, while I'm doing this, if you want to practice, why don't you go ahead and take out a piece of paper and actually do these problems, pause the video, do them before I do them, and check with me. You could always do that, or otherwise you could always watch, whichever way helps for you. Back to the question. So we have p squared minus 36, so we want to factor this. If you notice, both of these terms are squares. So p squared is a square, and 36 is also a perfect square. And if you notice, in the middle, I have a subtraction sign. So if you guessed that this is a difference of squares, you would be perfectly correct in guessing that, because that is what it is. So easy case, p squared minus 36, difference of squares. So the answer to this is just p plus 6 and p minus 6, right? You take the square root of this, which is just p, and you take the square root of 36, which is 6, and you just write two binomials that exchange the signs in there, that have opposite signs in there. So p plus 6, p minus 6. Nothing too difficult to do there. Okay, so let's do a more difficult problem. More difficult as in just, you know, it's not a special case. So I have one in front of me. So this one is, okay, this one's good. I have 2x squared plus 6x minus 108. There we go. So here we have a trinomial. So we're going to go ahead and factor this. So again, the first thing, whenever you're factoring, I didn't do it in the previous question, but you'll see why, is to look for a greatest common factor. So this number I can divide all of my terms by and just get a factor. So in this case, we have a greatest common factor, and we should pull that out before we do anything, because you can't really do anything unless you pull out the greatest common factor in this question. So go ahead, maybe take a guess at what the greatest common factor is. Well, the greatest common factor in this case is just 2, so I'm going to pull out the 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the 2. So I pulled out the 2, so 2x squared divided by 2, well, that just leaves me with x squared for this term. So what's 6x divided by 2? Well, that's just 3x. So that leaves me with 3x here. Again, I just pulled out the 2, right? If I multiplied this 2 back in, I would just get everything here again. And 108 divided by 2, which is just 54. So I would have minus 54. Okay, great. So take a look at this trinomial here. This is something we can factor. So again, we're going to look at our two numbers, our two specific numbers, the number in the middle and the number on the outside. So we're going to look at this number, and we're going to look at this number. So we're going to find two numbers that multiply to negative 54. So two numbers that multiply to negative 54, and two numbers that add to positive 3. So add to positive 3. So why don't you go ahead and attempt to find these two specific numbers. I'll wait. Okay, so if you've found those numbers are specifically positive 9 and negative 6, because 9 times negative 6 is negative 54, and 9 plus minus 6 is just 3. Again, plus and minus integer addition. 9 plus minus 6 is just 3. 9 minus 6 is 3. So I found my two factors, positive 9 and negative 6, so I can rewrite this trinomial as my factors. So I can write 2, and I can have x plus 9, because that is one of my factors, right? X plus 9, and the other one is x minus 6. Wonderful. So there we go. We factored this trinomial into its factors. So again, what did I do? First, always pull out that greatest common factor, and then what you want to do is just go ahead and factor the trinomial inside. Look at the numbers that multiply to this, and then add to this. All you have to do there. So let's see. Let's do another one. I don't believe I have the complex factoring in these problem sets that I have. I can look for one, but I don't believe I have these ones. Okay. Okay, why don't we go ahead and do this one right here. Okay, this one's not too bad. So let's have 5v squared minus 30v plus 40. Great. Plus 40. There we go. Another trinomial we can go ahead and factor. Again, look for the greatest common factor, the number I can divide all of these by, and like just evenly, all of these numbers evenly. So the greatest common factor in this case is 5. So I'm going to pull up the 5. Okay, leaves me with v squared because I pulled up the 5. So 5v squared divided by 5 is just v squared. And then negative 30v, if I divide that by 5, leaves me with negative 6v. And if I divide 40 by 5, that's 8. Okay, so now what is our goal here? Well, our goal is to find two numbers that will multiply to positive 8 and add to negative 6. So why don't we go ahead and write that somewhere? So multiply to 8 and add to negative 6. So go ahead, pause the video, try and look for these two numbers. And once you have those two numbers, you can again proceed with the video. Okay, so these two numbers are actually negative 4 and negative 2. So negative 4 and negative 2, when I multiply them together, the negatives cancel out and I have positive 8. And when I add negative 4 and negative 2, when I add those two, well, positive, negative, they cancel out, so which is negative 4 minus 2, and I have negative 6. So the perfect numbers have been found. So I have 5 on the outside. So v is my term here, so I'm just going to write v minus 4 and v minus 2. There we go. That's all there is to that question because those were the two factors. These two numbers, negative 4 and negative 2, multiply to 8, add to negative 6. Again, pull out the greatest common factor first. Okay, let's do one more, and I'll make another video on complex factoring because I don't want to throw that one in here. Alright, so complex factoring, I'll just make another video tomorrow or the day after, and then you guys can follow through on that. Okay, so the last one I wanted to do is just a simple one. So this is x squared minus 8x plus 16. So this, again, you can go ahead and find two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to negative 8. You can go ahead and do that. That works perfectly fine. Or you could recognize that this is a perfect square trinomial because I have x squared here and I have 16 here, right? Perfect square trinomial because I have x squared and I have 16. So the factors for this are just going to be x plus 4 and x plus 4. Or, my bad, not x plus 4 and x plus 4, x minus 4 and x minus 4. So the factors for this is just x minus 4 and x minus 4. Or if you want to be fancy and write it the proper way, you would write x minus 4 squared, representing two of these binomials. Again, how did I get these two terms? Well, negative 4 and negative 4 make negative 8, and negative 4 times negative 4 make positive 16. That's one way of going about it, or you can notice that this is a perfect square term, this is a perfect square term, and the square roots of these, if you multiply them together and multiply by 2, you'll get 8. So that's another way of doing it, but again, you can always just go ahead and find two numbers that multiply to 16, add to negative 8. That's all there is to it. So with that, I'll leave that video there. I think that's some good factoring practice, just some problems you can take a look at. And I'll post some more practice factoring problems where I'll work through the solutions again. So hopefully that video helped, and if it did, please feel free to subscribe and let me know if you want me to do something specific as well. Thank you and have a nice day.